In this chapter, I will deal with something which is actually quite modern today, but it was also in the past, but nowadays people do it a lot. Those are different strategies with pushing on a king side G or H pawns. And I will start with the classic, with the one game played in 1956 between Korchnoi and Polugajevsky. This was a Soviet championship, and it will be Queen's Gambit. And I think it's also useful to get interesting to get an idea how to treat this this opening. It can always come very handy. So let's start with this: d4, d5, c4, e6, knight c3, a6. Nowadays, actually, this is quite a popular line. Even the world champion Magnus Carlsen sometimes plays it, but Polugajevsky will not exactly play the same. cd5, ed5, knight f3, c6. Well, modern players, they do not hurry to play here c6, so Polugajevsky is not playing it precise. c6, bishop g5, bishop e7, h4. Okay, Korchnoi is already getting ready for some certain adventures. Knight f6, queen c2, castles. Well, what we have is the most normal Queen's Gambit exchange variation, but what is not normal is that, well, black has this pawn on a6, and white has already pushed h4. This inclusion should favor white, I would say. Because white is going to create some attack on the king's side, while on the other hand, the usefulness of this pawn on a6 is sort of not really clear. So maybe if black would start pushing, but it's not so clear how. So e3, knight b d7, bishop d3, and here indeed Polugajevsky, he wants to make a use of this a6 pawn, and he pushes c5. Now with this pawn on a6, perhaps he is indeed ready to start rolling. He wants to make a use of the fact that he played a6 move. Knight e5. This typical central jump is always handy here. c4. Hitting on a bishop. Now where to go? Bishop e2. I guess that bishop f5, well, Korchnoi did consider, but probably did not want to do it, maybe because of knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, queen takes, and now perhaps just jump is one option. Second option, maybe move g6. g6, let's say queen to f3. And now I can maybe do move like knight to d7. Something like this he probably did not like. So he played move bishop e2. Bishop e2, bishop b4. Pinning the knight, bishop f3. Now it's clear why Korchnoi went bishop back to e2 in order to hit on this target. Knight b6. And here we have interesting situation. Given the fact that white has pushed his pawn to h4, white is not in a hurry to castle king's side, which let's say would be normal move had his pawn been on h2, because I unpin and I target then this pawn on d5. Another option would be to castle queen's side. The same story. And very logical move. Now white has unpinned this knight, and white is ready to hit on this target, and white is also maybe ready to start pushing. Korchnoi, however, here does this typical idea for him, because Victor, I have played many games with him, was always ready to somehow come up with some unusual idea to disbalance the run of play on his opponent, and here he played calm move, what I like, and it's interesting idea. You can use it in your own games as well. He played here move king e2. White judges that his king will be safe in the middle of the board. he connects his two rooks, and he is ready to start the attack on the king side. Black already needs to somehow take a decision, because white does have a threat. White would like to take on f6. And if I take on f6, if you take by a queen, black will drop a pawn. Or if black takes by the g pawn, well, king is going to be weak. Black does not want to take a decision to give his bishop pair. Because now actually this pawn on a6 also is not so handy, because I will come with the rook to b1 and this knight will be sort of hanging. So black plays move bishop e6. Defending d5, now he can take with the queen back on f6. Should this knight be taken. White pushes h5. White continues his attack on the king side. Unpleasant situation for black, because h6 is not really what he wants, because bishop will move and he will need to deal with his problems. On the other hand, pin is unpleasant, so he plays move bishop e7. Rook ag1. And here black plays move knight e8, trying to trade those bishops, and then later to improve his knight. Bishop e7, queen e7, and now comes this typical strategy in a queen's gambit exchange variation. Only normally king is not on e2, king would be on c1 or b1 in such a kind of position. g4, pushing pawns. Now the question is what to do here with the black, because move like g5, g6 you don't really want to allow. By the way, move g4, which Kostyan just played, it is a piece sacrifice. Because when he pushed g4, he needed to kind of calculate what does he do on a move f6. Well, if f6, then white can do the typical sacrifice in these kind of positions. And here I think it happens to be working. This is knight g6, hg6, hg6. King is in a sort of a mate, and somehow those pieces in front of king does not make escape so easy. So let's say knight c7, rook h7, rook fd8, hoping to run with the king, g5. Because if rook h1, then indeed king runs and bishop can protect the king. But g5, king f8, and now beautiful move, queen f5. This is a very beautiful move. Because you cannot take my queen. And it's also maybe interesting to mention if you, let's say, take rook h1, king runs, queen f5, same old story. You cannot take queen because of mate in 1, obviously. While a move like queen f6 also does not help, because I take, and I get my piece back, threatening mate in 1, and threatening many other things. And for example, if queen f5, if king moves, it also does not really help, because let's say queen moves. I would like to take on g7, and the game is over. You cannot protect with the rook, because then again you are inside mate. So g5, king runs, queen f5, beautiful move, queen d6. How to win this kind of position? Because now I would like to take queen. I would give you a hint. Renew the threat. G takes f6, renewing the threat. Queen is still taboo because of mate in 1, and here there are no moves. So Kostyan needed to calculate this, and to calculate this he needed to spot here this queen f5 idea. And this is very nice idea. Okay, so g4 in the game happened, queen g5. Rook h2. White is getting ready, because with queen h5, black has postponed taking the knight, but actually next move will be f6, so black wants to collect this knight at his own terms. And white plays move rook h2 in order to be ready to deliver mate along the h file when the moment comes. f6. Polugajevsky takes the bite. Knight g6, hg, hg. Piece has been taken. Now somehow bridges are burned. It will be either mate or not. And Polugajevsky entered all this thing. Why? Because here he does not need to move this knight and the rook and all this stuff. Why? Because he plays here move f5. Because this pawn on g6 is now hanging. Pawn on g6 is now hanging, so now if I try to mate, it is not exactly mate. I just take, queen takes g6. But here white played a beautiful move to continue his attack. He played here move queen b1. Probably best black move was move rook f6. But it is difficult because let's say rook h5, queen takes g6, g5, rook f8, rook h4. It is not easy for black because threat is bishop g5 to win a queen. So piece sacrifice of Korchnoi was basically correct. Polugajevsky plays move knight d6. A move has a lot of sense. If he takes, for example, with the queen, I can still do the same idea, g5, with idea to grab a queen with bishop h5. And if queen h7, then if I don't find anything better, I still have move bishop f7. Knight d6, rook h5. Now with queen f8, a move rook to h8 will win. Why does rook h8 win? Because of double rook sacrifice, and this queen delivers checkmate. How? Let's see this. Check, this typical mating idea. Check, takes, and now queen decides. All of this beautiful, this is happening because here happened this excellent move queen b1. So knight d6, rook h5, queen g6 is then enforced, g takes f5, queen f6. It is quite possible that Polugajevsky calculated this all, because now how to continue attack? If white is a piece down, this bishop cannot be taken because f3 is hanging, rook g6. Bishop f5 only move, rook f6. Bishop b1. Sorry, bishop d3 check, because problem is that if you take bishop b1, I think simple chess will here do the job. I can 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5. I guess that I can simply take. Bishop check, king moves, rook takes only move, rook takes, and now if move like rook to f8, knight d5 simply wins, because you cannot take, because I will force your king into the open and win an exchange, and well then very soon the game. So rook f6, bishop d3. Polugajevsky is hoping to save the game this way. If I take now, he will take. And when I take back, rook takes. And black is saying, well, thank you very much, I'm a full rook up. But bishop d3, king e1. Rook takes f6. Black has collected for a queen, a rook and a piece. But problem for black is this d5 pawn that is hanging. Queen f1. Rook a f8, and now comes the bad news, knight takes d5. Again, this bishop cannot be taken because just like similar to previous lines which I gave, king is forced to f-file. And okay, queen f3. And here the problem is that you cannot collect to play 3 pieces for a queen because rook e5 simply wins full rook. And move like king e8 is also not really going to work because queen g4. And now king e7 is needed, but now white start collecting material. Queen g7, rook f7. Let's say queen g5 check. King to d7, rook h8. Black has 3 pieces, but white A collected a lot of pawns. And B, black is going to lose material. Black simply cannot prevent further material losses. So in the game itself, Pologaevsky played move rook f7, knight f4, now game is over. Bishop h7, bishop g4, transferring bishop to e6. And this costs black extra material. Rook e6, bishop f6, king h8, and now queen g4. Queen is coming to h-file. Rook f4, and now game, well, there are different ways to win this position, but Korchnoi chooses the most elegant way, immediate mate. Rook h7, with the mate on the next move. So what I like about this game, and this pushing of g-pawn and h-pawn, first of all, here the nice idea and the judgment that king will be safe in the middle of the board. Not many players will play here move king e2. It is very interesting idea by Korchnoi. And you can think if you play your own game and you have a similar kind of structure that actually king can be safe in the middle of a board. So this is one idea. The second one is that is this pawn push, and the fact that here, when Victor pushed g4, because here how otherwise to continue attack? If white does nothing, black will play knight e6, bishop f5, f6. This king will become a problem. Black will become better and win. The way to stop it was to push g4, but g4 is a piece sacrifice because now after f6 this knight cannot go back. So first white needed to calculate after f6 and the knight sacrifice, knight g6 takes, pawn takes, that in this position king does not run because there is this super beautiful move queen f5. And white needed to calculate that after queen g5, trying to take this knight in a different way, that in these complicated lines after rook h2 f6, that somehow in this position after knight g6, ag6, ag6, that in this position tactics will be working for white. And needed to figure out this also beautiful move queen b1. So actually this game is combination of excellent strategic planning coupled by very good calculation and tactical skill. So this was the first game in this chapter of pushing G and H pawn.